This is Module 2, Lesson 13, Dividing with Multiples of 10. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remember that we always need this DMSB, which reminds me to divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. And once I get down to the B, if I bring a number down, I always have to go back to the top. So the first problem here, we're going to write it, set it up so we can do it. So we have 70. The first number is the first to show up, so he gets to go in the house. 70 divided by 30. So the first thing I'm going to ask myself is, can 30 go into 7? And 30 goes into 7 0 times, so I have to put a 0 up there and get in the habit of putting that 0 up there. So I just divided. Now I'm going to go to the multiplication, which is 0 times 30, which is 0. And now I subtract, which is 7, and then I bring down. Since I brought a number down, I now have to go right back up to the beginning. Now I ask myself, how many times does 30 go into 70? That's down here. 30 goes into 70 2 times. 2 times 30 is 60. And I subtract. And now there's nothing to bring down, so that's my remainder. So that goes up here. The way that I do this to check is I go down here and I take my answer, my quotient, 2 times 30, my divisor, which is 60. And now 60 does not match what's here. So in order to fix that, what I need to do is take the 60 and add my remainder of 10 to it, and I get 70. And then I notice that 70 matches my dividend, so it is correct. So now we're going to do the next one. 430 goes in the house, dividing by 60. So I'm going to ask myself, how many times can 60 go into 4? It can't. So how many times can 60 go into 43? It can't, so it's another 0. And now how many times can 60 go into 430? So there's a couple of ways I could do this part. I can ask myself, how many times does 6 go into 43? Well, I can use my facts for that. Or on the side, if I wanted to start doing some multiplication, well, that doesn't work. It's too big. Well, that's small, so let's try that and see what happens. And that's good. So we have 7, remainder 10. Next, we're going to divide 572 divided by 90. We're going to walk through this one a little slower. And before I even get started, on the side, I'm going to take my 90 and I'm going to do my multiplication tables. And that might help me to figure some work out later. Sometimes when I have all of this written out on the side, it might help me to figure out how many times something can go in. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask myself, can 90 go into 5? It cannot go into 5, so I put a 0. Now I multiply. 0 times 90 is 0. And then I subtract. And I bring down the next number. Now this 57 that I just made is smaller than the 90, so that I know it's okay. If the number after I subtract is bigger than the number on the outside, then I know it's wrong. So now how many times can 90 go into 57? Well, it can't. So we do this again. When I subtract again, I get my 57. So I know that it's small enough. I bring down my next number. And now I have to ask myself, how many times can 90 go into 572? So I look, I have 450, that's not enough. I have 540, we're getting closer. I have 630. Well, 630 would be too big, so I like 540. So it goes in how many times? 6. And now I already have the answer to my multiplication of 6 times 90, which is 540. and I subtract, and when I subtract, 32 is less than 90, so I know that's correct, and I also know that I don't need to bring any more numbers down, so my answer is 6 remainder 32. Next, it says divide, then check. So in this case, I do have to do a check. So we're going to start. We have 41 divided by 30. And we are going to ask ourselves, how many times can 30 go into 4? Well, it can't go in. So I bring down the next number and I say, how many times can 30 go into 41? Well, I can do exactly what I said before, and I can do my 30 times 1, which is 30. 30 times 2, which is 60. Well, that's too big. I want 41. So 30 times 1 seems to be the answer. And now I'm going to subtract. And when I subtract, this 11 is less than the 30, so it's correct. So 1 remainder 11. And now I'm going to do my check. In order to check, I multiply my quotient times my divisor, which gives me 30. And then I have to add in my remainder of 11. And that makes 41. And this 41 matches this 41, so that's a good sign that I'm most likely correct. And the last one that I'm going to do with you is 30 goes into 800. 30 cannot go into 8. Can 30 go into 80? Well, I can use my work over here from before, and I can add some more to it if I'd like. Well, 30 times 3 would be 90. That would be too big because I only want 80. So it looks like 2 times. And how many times can 30 go into 200? Well, I'm going to keep doing some more math on the side if it will help me. Some of you might not need this work on the side, and that's fine. 210 is too big, so since that's too big, I'm going to go with my 30 times 6 and get 180. And when I subtract, that 20 is smaller than that 30, so that's a good sign. So that's my remainder not of 30. That's my remainder of 20. And now I have to check my work. And in order to check, what I'm going to do right now, just because there's so much work on here, I'm going to erase that just to do some work. I'm going to take my quotient, which is 26. I'm going to multiply it times 30. My zero rule tells me I can put the 0 down. And I have 780. And then I'm going to take 780 and add it to 20. And I get 800. And that matches what's underneath. And that is how you divide.